I've always been very nervous to like tell this story, but I always promised myself that this story was gonna help somebody. Well, I just did my makeup. And that is the moment in time that I started to truly believe in God. People ask me like, why don't you go back to law school? You only have a year left. It was so crazy because that letter had been sitting there for 11 years. My entire life changed.
Used to be too silent till you scramble me. Used to be your right and you meant to handle me. Used to be non-violent till you ambush me.
Hey y'all, welcome back to my channel. If you are new here, my name is Jazz. I create a lot of content on how to become a better you, how to glow up, things like that, beauty, fashion, lifestyle. So if that sounds like your thing, go ahead and hit the subscribe button. Today we got a little personal, we got a little emotional. We did not cry on camera, but we almost did. But I wanted to talk to you about my own personal glow up story. I create a lot of content on TikTok, on YouTube, on Instagram, all about how to glow up, how to become your best self, how to pour into yourself. And I mentioned it a few times, my own glow up story, but I've never gone into depth like how I have today. I've always wanted to make this video because I know my story can resonate with so many people, but I've also been very nervous to tell this story because it's a very, very personal story that I haven't told some people around me in person. Only those closest to me have I told this story until today. I really hope you enjoy this video. If you do, go ahead and give it a like. Check out some of my other videos if you do like this type of content. And I will see you in the next video. Hey y'all. So excuse the lighting. I'm honestly still playing around with it. So today I thought I would film like a get ready with me. I also have a whole bunch of new beauty products that I've never tested before. But I wanted to walk you through how I glowed up, my glow up story, everything like that from beginning to end. I've always been very nervous to like tell this story, but I always promised myself that this story was gonna help somebody. It's got a lot of different parts to it, so let's just get into it. All of this I got in PR, all the new products I got in PR. So yeah, let's get into it. My story actually starts back to, honestly, when I was little. I was always told that I was a good arguer. I argued very well, and that I was gonna make a great attorney. Now, I don't think my parents or friends or family meant anything by that, but you're told from a very, very young age what people think that you're gonna be good at, you can tend to go along with the flow and just accept like that's what you're gonna do instead of trying to explore and figure out what you truly want to do. In high school, I was very, very good at reading and writing. I've always been very good at reading and writing. That was high school. And then I ended up going to Spelman College. And when it came to like choose your major and stuff, I was like, oh, just be an English major. I've always been great at English. Like that's just like what I'm gonna do. At Spelman, if you're not the next Michelle Obama, then like what are you doing? So at first I kind of wanted to do journalism. I kind of wanted to do fashion journalism. I wanted to be like in Vogue or Essence or something like that. And then I saw they didn't make like a lot of money. And I came from a single parent household as well. So I went to a few like seminars and stuff. And I went to one specific seminar. And in that seminar, again, Spelman College, all Black, all women, there were these Black female attorneys. They came in with red bottoms on, drove up in their Range Rovers, Chanel jewelry, Tiffany jewelry, Chanel bags, makeup on point, hair was on point. They were so well spoken, and they started talking about how they were attorneys. I said, whatever they are, I am about to be. And they were like, they came and spoke to our English class because they were like, oh, if you're an English major, you're gonna be great at becoming an attorney. So already in my head, I was like, you know what? People keep telling me that I was always gonna be an attorney. I would be great at this. Let me just, like, I'll listen to y'all. That's when I really decided to become an attorney. And then I looked up how much attorneys made. And I was like, oh, I come from a single parent household. Like, this is my ticket to give my mom everything. All of those different reasons, in hindsight, didn't do any exploration as you should in college. I didn't test dance classes. I didn't test theater classes. I didn't test business classes. I didn't test anything. I just kind of just, oh, lawyer, like I like how those women look. They say to be good at reading and writing. I've always been told I'm a good arguer. Like that's just what I'll do. None of that in there ever accounted for what I wanted to truly do. In hindsight, I should have taken a lot more business classes. From that point on, I was very strategic about the clubs that I joined at Spelman, the things that I do, the internships that I was gonna do. So it came to start doing the LSAT. I literally cut myself off from the world and dedicated my whole life to this LSAT, and it was really, really hard. My top schools were Columbia Law, Emory Law, and University of Southern California. Emory Law was pretty much my top law school. Again, looking back on it, I should have chose, even if I did go to law school, I should have chose a different state. I should have challenged myself. I should have moved, you know what I mean? I really wanted to stay in Atlanta. I didn't want to up and move from my apartment. And I liked my friends and everything like that. So I was like dead set on Emory. So that's a pretty good color. Yeah, set my sight on Emory Law. I would always attend all of the like Atlanta law school fairs and stuff, and I really networked with Emory Law a lot. I even applied to Emory Early Decisions, so I was committed to that school. And it ended up working out in my favor. I actually got into law school in 3 days, which is like an insane fact. I think once they saw my application come through, they were like, this girl not only has an impressive, like, because by that point, I had been Phi Beta Kappa, summa cum laude. I graduated top 3 in my English department. I had all these coveted internships. I had worked on Wall Street. I had a very clear vision of what I wanted to contribute to Emory. I had gone to all of the Emory events, and they offered me a pretty sizable scholarship as well. I also had like a relationship at the time that I got into law school. It seemed like life was just going my way. I mean, I definitely had a lot of extra bullshit that I was like going through, but that was a very proud moment when I got into Emory Law. That summer, I was pretty excited to go in, doing all the pre-reading and stuff. My first day of law school, I'm talking like orientation. When you first sit down in the auditorium, you're sitting next to people. I remember this day like it was just yesterday. The moment I sat in that auditorium, I had a very, very uneasy feeling. I felt like I was in the wrong place. I was like, something just like doesn't feel right. My first year of law school was pretty hard, but that's just like to be expected. You know what I mean? Like that's just law school. You're not really expected to get like a big internship after your first year, but as long as you do something law. A lot of my friends in law school were just getting these big law internships, and I didn't get one. I got a clerkship with a judge, which is still like amazing, but I wasn't really that interested in it. And then COVID hit. It was just a lot of pressure. I was like living with my ex-boyfriend at the time. It was a really like toxic relationship. COVID hit. I was doing my internship at home. It was kind of up in the air with like law school. I felt like my friends were like succeeding more than me in law school. And then also you start like interviewing for your second year internship the summer after your first year. And that second year internship is really your full-time job, which is really where you're gonna work for the next like 3 years or so. So pretty early on in your law school like journey is decided where you are going to work for the next few years of your life, which sounds crazy. So was doing my clerkship at home. It was like fine or whatever. I just like wasn't really that interested. Even my first year in law school, now again, hindsight is always 2020. I noticed that the kids in my class were just super interested in the topics. They were super interested in the law. They were going to office hours, as they should, because like they made the choice to be in law school. I couldn't care less. I wanted in and out. I did not like socialize that much in law school. Like I kind of like did my own thing. I also like didn't talk to like any of my friends like that. Again, just very, very dark time, especially like when COVID hit. It was hard to see people. Then you go into your second year and everything is just up in the air, and there's just so much insurmountable pressure to get that second year internship. and it's almost got to be big law. It's got to pay a lot. It's got to be big law. It's got to be name worthy and stuff like that, especially like sports and entertainment, like how I wanted to go into. And my second year, all that pressure trying to get a big law job and going to all the different seminars and going to all the different speed dating networking stuff, it really took a toll on me. But since it was COVID, since I wasn't getting out, I got really depressed, really anxious. I gained a whole bunch of weight. I was always constipated. I was always stressed out, fighting a lot with my boyfriend. Money got tight. I had like not spoken to a lot of my friends since I even entered law school because I thought I had to like lock in. I didn't really have social media at the time because I deleted social media because I thought like it was going to be distracting in law school. FAVES was just breaking out. Like it was just, I was very sad. Sad enough to the point where I started getting really bad panic attacks. Really bad panic attacks, and I was just so depressed all the time. And my panic attacks went to like once a month. Like now we're in our like second year, and now my second year I was on leadership boards for multiple organizations. I had made Law Journal, which is like very prestigious wherever you go. I was doing very quote unquote well. I was doing really well in my interviews. I got a number of callbacks and interviews. And I just kept panicking. I kept panicking. I just kept feeling like I like wasn't good enough deep down. I went through a whole interview process with my number one, my like big choice law firm. It was up in New York, exactly like where I wanted to move to. And long story short, I ended up getting the internship. I ended up getting an internship at my dream job. And I mean, there was other reasons going on if I'm being completely transparent. But the moment I got that like decision, my whole world, I felt like fell apart. And I got so sad. And my panic attacks turned from every month to like every week to like every day. This is where the testimony comes in. One day, my panic attack was just getting so bad. I wanted to be done with life. I'm being very transparent. I was like talking to my boyfriend. I was reaching out to my boyfriend, and he was like, you have two options. You can either come here like ASAP. You can come here ASAP, or I gotta take you to the hospital because I'm afraid you're gonna like do something to yourself. So I was like, fine, I will come and I will come to you. Now, during this time, and especially after I got into my dream program, I ended up getting a therapist because I, again, was the saddest I had ever been. But everything was like seemingly going perfect. Like I had a boyfriend, I had an apartment, I had a car, I was in law school, I had my law school friends and my law school like support system. I had just gotten into my dream program, I was in journal, like there was nothing to be sad about, and yet I was the saddest I had ever been. I ended up getting a therapist. And she was basically like, you know, like, why are you here? And I was like, I am literally the saddest I've ever been in my life. Went through like what was going on in my life and like how stressed I was about getting an internship. And then when I got that internship, like none of my worries went away. If anything, it intensified. And she said something like so simple to me. She goes, well, what if you could do if you just stopped? I was like, up into that moment in my life, again, I told you I didn't really make decisions for myself or anything like that. I had never even considered stopping. Never quit anything in my life. Like, I had never quit. I had never stopped. You want to talk about sports? You want to talk about... I've never just stopped something just because like I wasn't feeling anymore. I've always persevered, saw it out, even when I hated it. Most Black people aren't given the luxury of quitting something. Somebody of a different race might have the luxury of quitting law school, but like we got into law school, like what do you mean quit? Like that's not a luxury that we have. And when she asked me that, it stopped my world. I was like, stop, like you're telling me that like I have the power to just not do this anymore. Like, I never even thought about that. And then she was like, well, what would you do instead of law school? Like, what would you do if you weren't in law school right now? And by that point, since my skin had been like breaking out so much, I was like, I'd probably open up my own like beauty spa, or maybe I would go to like esthetician school. I'd do something. I would do something to make women feel beautiful. And she was like, well, then why don't you just do that? I was like, what do you mean, why don't I just do that? I was really like, that's just not how the world works. And she was like, well, why not? Like, you have complete and utter control of your life, of how you want it to turn out. Like, what if you just stopped and did that? And don't care what anybody says and just went through it. And I was like, no, I couldn't do that. And as I was going throughout law school the next couple weeks, it just kept ringing in my mind. I was just like, there's another path. Like, I don't have to endure this anymore. Like, I could just stop. I could just wipe away all of my worries. Now looking back on it, all of that stuff that like my body was going through, God was really trying to tell me that I was in the wrong place. I was not listening to him, and he was not obviously making me suffer, but he was making it unbearable because I was trying to force my plan instead of listening to him. And he was gonna show me that. So like everything just kept getting worse and worse and worse. And then that day came and I was having that panic attack and I was in my boyfriend's apartment and I was like, I want to stop. I want to stop. I want to stop. I want to stop. And I was like, I want to call my mom and tell her I can't do this anymore. Call my mom, right? Single parent household, and I'm very nervous to tell her that I don't want to do this anymore. And by this point, I hadn't ever, like, my boyfriend was really the only person to see how sad I was, and he didn't even really know, you know? I didn't tell anybody what I was going through. So I call up my mom, fully expecting her to be like, think about it, Jasmine, like, don't do this, just stick it out, like, you just have a year left, like, you just got into your dream internship. And I call her up and I was like, Mom, I cannot do this anymore. Like, and she goes, I would have been waiting for you to say that. I was shocked, in tears almost, child. I was so shocked. I was so shocked when she said that. It felt like the biggest weight was lifted off of my shoulders. She was like, why don't you just take a break? She's like, I have seen you become somebody that you're not. You're not bubbly anymore. You're not talkative. You're very short with people. You don't go out as much. See you endure something and see it tearing away at you. She's like, no mother wants that for their kid. And I will never put that on you. Like, I fully agree. Like, I think you should stop. I felt like a demon was like leaving my body when she said that. So this story gets even crazier. It gets even crazier. So I get off the phone with her and I feel like I can breathe. Oh my God. I felt like I just took my first sip of air. I feel like I can breathe. And this is the same day I'm having my breakdown. I call my mom. I tell her I can't do this anymore. This is all the same day. So my mom calls me back a few hours later and she was like, she's like, hey, how are you doing? I said, I feel a lot better right now, but I'm just like, now what do I do with my life? Now that I don't want to become a lawyer anymore, like, now what do I do with my life? She was like, are you sitting down right now? And I was like, yeah. And she was like, I have something out of this world. Now, let me rewind. I was crying to my mom the week before, having one of my anxiety attacks. I was crying to my mom and I was telling her, if you didn't know already, so I lost my dad to cancer. And it was pretty abrupt. I didn't know like the full extent. It was when I was young. I didn't know the full extent of how sick he was. So I didn't know he was about to die. Like, I thought he was just sick, you know? I was telling her, and this happened over 10 years ago. I was telling her, now that like I'm an adult, I don't remember the sound of his voice. And it's frustrating me. And it's making me feel sad. And I don't remember the sound of his voice. And she needs to go and find VHS tapes, because I don't remember what he sounds like. It was making me really sad, and I feel like the only person that could bring me back down right now was my dad. Like, I needed to hear his voice, even if it was just for 1 second, a voicemail, something. Like, that's the only person I wanted to hear from. I remember that conversation. She's like, are you sitting down right now? And I was like, yeah, what's up? She goes, the weirdest thing just happened to me. One, of our neighbors is going to like an old party or whatever, and everyone was asked to bring an old tea set. And she didn't have an old tea set, so she stopped by and asked if we had an old tea set. Randomly on this day, out of the blue, random. And my mom was like, oh, the only old tea set we have is John, which is my dad's name, his mom's old tea set. She's like, but I'd have to like go and like look around the house for it. So she goes and looks around the house, and she opens up a cabinet that has not been opened since he passed away. We still live in the same house. She opens up this cabinet and goes on top of my grandma Dorothy's tea set, who has since passed away. My dad has since passed away. Goes to the tea set, and on top of the tea set is a letter, and it says Jasmine on it. Again, this is the same day I'm having my breakdown. It's a 6-page letter. I'm not gonna cry. It's a 6-page letter knowing that he was gonna pass away. Again, I didn't know. A month from the day that he passed away. Just a letter to me. 6 pages. Everything that he wanted me to know throughout my life. I'm not gonna cry on the internet. Everything that he wanted me to know throughout my life. Everything that he wanted to tell me. Just saying how I was his best friend. Well, I just did my makeup. And there was a line in there that says, you're going to go through some really hard things in life. And you're not gonna know how they're gonna turn out. But just know everything works out for you, and it always has. You need to practice patience, and you need to trust yourself. And it's so interesting because that is the moment in time that I started to truly believe in God. Because beforehand, I'd always been very, very annoyed and very angry at God, to be very transparent, that he took away my best friend and my favorite person. And I didn't understand why he did that. And, you know, through my own like spiritual journey, like my dad had cancer and he was suffering. Like, I think the greatest gift in the world is to take my dad's suffering and place him up in heaven right next to him, where he can always view me and always make things happen in my life. I think that's the greatest gift anybody could have ever gotten. Also knew that when I was having that day, when I felt like I didn't want to be on this earth anymore, the only person that I needed to hear from was my dad. And by some way, God made things shift on that day to that lady asking about that teapot and opening up that cupboard, because I needed to hear from him. That's the only person I would have ever listened to. And so when people ask me like, why don't you go back to law school? You only have a year left. And I just feel like because my dad said that on that day, I got such confirmation on that day that I needed to trust myself, and I was never gonna go back. Because I was trying to force this. I wanna be a lawyer. This is what I wanna do. And God was like, that is not the plan I have for you. And you keep trying to force this plan. And I'm going to grab you by the back of your collar till you have no other choice on this planet but to listen to me. And I feel like God saved me that day. I feel like my dad saved me. It was so crazy because that letter had been sitting there for 11 years. Never found it. 11 years that letter has sat in that cupboard, random cupboard in our house. And no one had ever seen it, you know? I saw that letter. I called up some of my uncles, some of my dad's brothers I hadn't talked to in a while, my cousin, a lot of family that I didn't talk to in a while. I reached out to friends that I hadn't talked to in a while, and my entire life changed from the moment I got that letter. And I left law school, and I didn't know what I was going to do in my life, but by God's grace, I ended up being able to transfer my LSAT score over to Emory's Business School. They expedited my application to Emory's Business School. They transferred over my scholarship, gave me a new scholarship to Emory. Like, this is what happens when you start to trust God, trust your path, and things will just start falling into place. If you're meeting resistance time and time, you're not on the right path. I promise you're not on the right path. If you keep meeting resistance and your body's telling you no. But then when I stopped resisting and I just let it flow, things just started like falling into my life. Like, got into business school, got at the age of what, 25? no, 24. I was 24 at the time. Got into the 1-year program so I didn't have to stay an extra year in school. Dropped out of law school in like February, and I started business school in March. And this is where my glow up journey happened. So because I got into the 1-year accelerated business school program, I had a few months in between when I officially left law school and when I officially began business school. So between February and May. Once getting the letter and the excitement and finally leaving law school and then getting into business school, and like that was like getting my application. Once all of that died down and I was left with my feelings, I had to cope with just a whole bunch of feelings, like guilt, and how is this gonna look towards people, and what are people gonna say, and are people gonna think that I'm like stupid? And that's why I like left law school. Like, what are people gonna make up about me? What are people gonna say? And that was my first instance of, I had no choice but to start to learn that lesson of not caring what people think about me. Once I left law school, I could not care what people thought about me. I was like, I feel like I've been given this sign from God to become a better person, and I am going to become a better person. Like, I have no choice. I felt like I was backed up against a wall. I have no choice but to become a better me. I also felt like divinely protected. I felt like because I got that letter on that day, I felt like if I just trusted God's plan and I just went with it, there was just like no way I could fail. The fact that God would do that to me, and my dad would see me as worthy enough to be shown a sign like that on that day, I was like, I've got to be better. I've got to be the best person, because God has something so great for me, obviously, and I need to be a great person to receive great things. So it really started with my ex-boyfriend. As toxic as he was, he knew he was toxic, and he knew he had a whole bunch of like things that he needed to like deal with. So he really first started doing is he started introducing me to a gratitude journal. Started with the 5-minute journal. He's the one that introduced it to me. And in the 5-minute journal, they say that you can practice a manifestation technique. And I never heard about manifestation. And they said on the parts when it says what you're grateful for, think about what you want from your life, whether it's a new car, a new apartment, friends, a relationship. What do you want? And say it like you already have it. And this is how you manifest very powerfully. And I was like, what is manifestation? You're telling me that like I can just speak positively about things and they'll happen, and like I just have to be consistent with like journaling and like they'll just happen for me? Like this like cannot be real. So I started to do the 5-minute journal, and I started to do what they said, and I started being like, because I really wanted to move out of my apartment at that time. I was like, I'm so grateful for my beautiful apartment at so-and-so. So grateful for this. I'm so grateful for this. And things that weren't already in my life, but in hindsight, I had already had them. Like, time is not linear. I had already had them in my life. I was just manifesting them. And so as I started to do this 5-minute journal, and as I started to look up what manifestation was, I started researching more about manifestation. Then obviously I started going on the people that had like morning routines, and they started to explain how important a morning routine was and how important meditation was to manifestation. Like, it all started from manifestation and journaling and things like that. And then I started watching a lot of sermons, a lot of Sarah Jakes Roberts, because I'm like, in the letter, my dad said, like, I want you to get closer to God. Like, that's the one thing I feel like I didn't do was like nurture your relationship with God. Like, I really want you to get to know him. So I was watching a lot of sermons. I was doing a lot of journaling. I was like starting from baseline with my body. I'd gained a whole bunch of weight. Skin was breaking out. So I started piece by piece. Again, I started with the gratitude journal, but I started to work on my skin. I started to do, again, this was still COVID. So I did yoga in my apartment. And then I started looking up like workout plans on like YouTube that you could do from home. I started doing the Chloe Ting challenges, and I started manifesting, and I started to invest in some skincare products. I started to get some facials and stuff like that. And all of the things that I talk about today, I really did that. And I started from ground one, and I was so consistent with it. Now, the only caveat that I will say, I don't feel like I always mention all the time, is I had the time to do so. Again, again, it was in between law school and business school. I was just at home. I had no choice but to become a better me. And that's what I spent my days doing, is just becoming a better me. By the time I entered business school, I was still a little rough around the edges, but I think by that point, like, my relationship was ending. Thank God. Like, God was probably like, girl, I done leveled up your whole life and you can't get this out of your life. Like, I felt really good going into business school. I felt really, really good. And then finally I got rid of that relationship and I started focusing on myself and I started dating people. And then when I felt right, I actually ended up like 2 weeks after breaking up with my long-term boyfriend at that point. That was like 3 years. Once I broke up with him, literally like 2 weeks later, I ended up meeting my boyfriend now. But obviously we had both gotten out of relationships. That didn't work, but we ended up finding each other our way back. Let me know if you want that story time. But everything just started to go up from there. And then I was in business school. By that point, because I had felt like good, I had been a little bit on social media. I started hanging out with my friends again. I started hanging out with my line sisters. Started getting really back into shape, really going to yoga classes now that like you could go to classes again. I felt so good. And then because business school was a lot chiller than law school, I downloaded TikTok. I thought it was just going to be an app where preteens dance, but the same things that I just spent the last like 6 months of my life dedicating to, the morning routines, the healthy living, I saw it. I saw women do those things and I saw those routines. I'm like, I do that. And then I started seeing Pilates and yoga. I'm like, I do that, but I didn't see anybody that looked like me do that or talk about these concepts and go to Pilates and go to yoga and have this lifestyle where you just pour so much into yourself, because that's all that I was doing at that rate. So I just started recording. I would say for a couple of different reasons. One, because I genuinely didn't see anybody like me. Two, I actually have a very bad memory. And it was really nice recording like when I would go on trips with my friends or when I would go out to dinner with my friends or my morning routines. It was really cool watching that back and seeing what I did during a day. Because again, I have very bad memory. I loved editing. I loved putting stuff together. I loved like my own version of romanticizing my life. Like, I loved that, and I fell in love with it. And then all of a sudden people started to comment on my videos and then started to have dialogue back and forth. And then I felt like I was forming a little bit of a community, and then I uploaded every day for like 5 months straight. Then I started getting paid for it. I started getting paid for my passion, and I started making like a little side hustle in business school to where like I wasn't even really using my student loans like that. I was just going off of that. And I had this really great professor at Emory, and he saw kind of what I was doing on TikTok. I think I had 30,000 at that point. And he said, I'm gonna let you do like an independent study and you work on TikTok, you work on entrepreneurship. He's an entrepreneurship professor. You work on your craft so that when you graduate, you have something solidified. Like, a lot of these kids in business school, they have their investment banking stuff lined up. They have consultant, like, because you want to be an entrepreneur, I need to let you work on this now so that you have a fail safe. You know what I mean? That you are just as established as them when you graduate. So because he let me do that, when it came to be like my last semester at Emory, when everyone started to get their offers and stuff, their full-time offers, what I was making on TikTok, because he let me just work on it, was equivalent to what I would be making as a senior consultant. And I said, oh, I'm going to do this full time. And then all of a sudden people in my class, like, that were going to go be consultants and going to investment banking, but kind of wanted to start their own side hustles and wanted to know about social media, they started to come to me. I even taught a class in business school about TikTok, about social media. I got a lot of opportunities from them. Everyone thought what I was doing was like really cool. No one like thought that I was doing something like dumb or like I was throwing away my life. Business school also felt like so much more free. It was so less stuffy. I ended up graduating. And I ended up just doing TikTok full time. And then shortly after I graduated, I ended up getting an agent and a manager. I ended up getting management. And so that made me also feel super secure in going with it full time. And I graduated in May of 2022. Now it is July of 2023. So I've been doing social media full time over a year. I love what I do. I love what I do. I'm not gonna get emotional, but I feel like I am within my purpose. I feel like I love pouring into myself, and I feel like I have such a testimony and such a story about God, about trusting yourself, about pouring into yourself, about quitting things, and it's okay to quit things. And my story is so powerful, and I feel like I am so blessed. I just hit 400,000 on TikTok. I am so blessed that I have a platform to show women of all ages the lessons that I've learned through my life, and to show you constantly through the daily vlogs and the weekly vlogs and the chit chats like this, how giving yourself everything and pouring into yourself in the little daily habits, it's gonna change your life. It might not seem to it day to day, but then I look back on it, I'm like, that's the stuff that kept me grounded. That's the stuff that I gave myself so much that nobody could even walk into my life and even play with me like that, because I didn't even play with me like that. And anytime I reach a low point in my life, like, I know how to get back up. Let's go do the outfit. Okay, welcome to the corner of my apartment. Because this is a podcast and it's super chill, I'm just gonna be wearing jeans and a t-shirt. So I have these cute jeans from Fashion Nova and this shirt from Skims. So let's put that on real quick. Okay, hopefully you can see how cute. And then I'm just gonna wear these heels. My hair is just not cooperating right now. That's the outfit. Thank you so much for joining me. I know it was emotional. I know it was a lot, but hopefully I inspired you, I motivated you, something resonated with you, and that's all that I can hope for. So definitely make sure to check out my friend's podcast. That's where I'm going to right now. I will include it in the description along with anything that I mentioned, all the products down below. And thank you so much for joining me. I love y'all so, so much. And yeah, all right, bye y'all.